I just got something in the post. It's some prints from my print lab that I'm really looking forward to seeing. This is the first prints I've done from my drone. So let's see what they look like. So this is going to be, there's a couple of different sizes in here. So I've got the main print printed 24 inches. And they've sent me some samples just to see just how big we can get this to go. So let's see what it looks like. So the guys I use for all my printing is Digital Lab, who are based up in Newcastle, and they are amazing. So these are C-type prints, so all kind of photographic paper. I assume this is Fuji Crystal Archive. Let's have a look to see what these look like. So we've got this main image here. So this is the image. I really like this, how this one came out, because of all the colors and the texture. So I thought this would be a really good example to show off what the drone can do. So this is off the Mavic Air 2, and it's a 48 megapixel sensor, but I wasn't sure how well it would print. Just because it's so small, it's only a 1/2 inch sensor, but the quality, the sharpness on that is incredible. So that's 24 inch, I'm not sure what it's by, because it's not the usual crop. It would normally be 24 by 16, but it's a different ratio. So this is 24 by 18.5. But yeah, that's come out really nicely. I'm really happy with how that looks. What they've also done, just so I can get an idea of how big this thing could print, is they've produced it. So if you look, you can see, compare the stones there. This is as if it was printed 36 inches wide. Yeah, 36 inches. So you can see that obviously the pixels per inch will be less because it's a bigger image. So number of pixels divided by the physical width gives you the PPI. So it's a lower PPI, but you view it from further away, and actually even from close up, this is still incredibly detailed, incredibly sharp. There's so much texture in these rocks. I'm really impressed with that. And then the next one, which is even more impressive, this is if it was printed 48 inches wide, and you can see the difference. If I stagger those, you can see the difference in size following the rocks and the sea. Now, I mean, close up, there's a little bit of degradation in quality between, like, if you look at this one close up, the 24 inch and the 48, then obviously there is a difference, but that's looking from like a foot away. I mean, you know, you put a print on your wall this wide, then that's going to be, you know, you're not going to see anything. That looks incredibly sharp, the texture on it all. Now, I used a really slow shutter speed on this to get the sea looking almost like an oil painting. So you can see here, like the way the texture of the sea is kind of all, it's the sea's got, the motion of the sea's flattened it out a little to give it that really nice, like almost oil painting kind of look. But the drone's kept itself still remarkably well, so there's no blur at all on the rocks. And you can see, if I move along here, how the difference in the size, but the quality is absolutely incredible on those. So that shows just how big a print you could do with these little drones. I mean, that's seriously impressive, and then I can't wait to get something properly done. I think one of these might have to go in a frame on my wall in the office. But so that's looking really good. I'm really happy with that. So yeah, so there you go. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how they've come out. So these are C-type prints rather than inkjet, and that's gonna look really nice. I think once I've got that, I think I'm gonna get one of those up on the wall. Probably I'll get the 24. I'll get something. I've probably got enough space at the 24 inch in my little office wall. I'm not sure if I'd fit anything bigger up in there. It's quite a small room, but I think that'd look really nice. Or maybe to replace the poster up in the kitchen. So it might well go, if I got something if I trim off some of the backgrounds or some of the sides of this, that'd be really nice with the texture up in there. So I might get it printed up for that. But I wanted to see just these test prints to see exactly how that was going to come out before I did it all. Alex at Digital Lab kindly sorted me out with these. I'll put a link to their site in the comments at the bottom if people haven't seen them before. They only sell to pro photographers, so if you're selling to clients, I mean their quality is second to none. And no, this isn't sponsored. I just use these guys for all my prints, so I'm really happy with them. Lovely bunch of guys to work with. There you go. If anyone's got any questions about any settings to do with that picture or how I prepared it for print, drop them in the comments below and I'll let you know. Anyway, that is not what I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted to quickly go over these, the neutral density filters. These are ones for the Mavic Air 2. Hey Joey. Say hello. He's quite grumpy. Yeah, parrots are quite grumpy. He's alright. It's quite a friendly nibble. Hello. That's not food. That is not food. So yeah, neutral density filters, which are key to anyone who's doing any kind of video. So what you need the neutral density filters for is to keep your shutter speed where you want it to be. So whether it's ones for your drone or for your main camera, they come in two different varieties. You have these, which are fixed neutral density filters. They reduce the number of stops of light into your camera by a set amount, or variable ND filters, which are two pieces of polarized glass put together that as you rotate block different amounts of light, because polarized glass only lets light of one wavelength direction through. So as you rotate it, it ends up where you can block nearly all the light or only a small amount. Now I've got a variable ND filter for my main camera because I don't want to have to keep switching it, whereas for the drone I've got set ones. So the idea is that if it's a bright day, you need to the only way your camera can cope with that, you've normally got a few options, one of which is increased shutter speed. You've got your aperture, so you could close down your aperture, but that's going to change your composition because it's going to change your depth of field. Or if you're shooting with a cheaper drone like the Mavic Air 2, it's a fixed aperture anyway, so you're stuck at f2.8. So you want as low as an ISO as possible. So if you're at your base ISO and it's a really bright day, you don't want to increase your shutter speed because you're going to get that really unnatural movement. You want a bit of motion blur. So the only option you have to maintain the composition, the depth of field that you want, and to get the right exposure is to reduce your shutter speed. Now the way I tend to do it on the drone is I point it at something from the ground without a filter on, so I can see what shutter speed that's giving me. If it was giving me 1/1000th, for example, and I was shooting in 30 frames per second, I'd need to get that frame rate down to 1/60th of a second. So 1000 reduced by a single stop is 500, reduced by a second stop is 250, reduced by a third stop is 125, reduced by a fourth stop would be 160 or 161.25, but which is as close to 1/60th as you're going to get. So that means I would need a 4-stop filter. A 4-stop ND filter would be called an ND16 because it's actually giving you a 16th of the light. An ND8 filter would be a third, would be 3 stops. So if you think 1 stop is a half of a half is a quarter, half of a quarter is an eighth, so ND8. So it is how you work that out. If I'm using a variable ND filter on my camera, what I tend to do is just have the histogram on and just dial it in I know what my shutter speed is, I know what aperture I want, and just dial it in until my histogram looks good across the back of the camera. And I do that with the drone as well. Rather than let the drone pick an exposure in auto and then turn it to manual and add the filter, I have it all in manual and I dial the shutter speed up until it gives me the correct, how I want the histogram to look. So spreading all the way from darks to lights across the histogram. And then I can easily work out what filter that I need. Now these ones are the Freewell Bright Day filters. They're a lot better than the included ones in the DJI Fly More kit. They're made from glass. They're a lot tougher, just a lot better made. These will last a lot longer. The free ones are fine. The ones that are included in the Mavic Air 2 are fine, but they're not going to last up to too much cleaning, and there's also bigger gaps between them. So this is, I've got 8, 16, 32 and 64 in this, whereas I believe with the DJI Fly More kit, you get an ND 16, 64 and 256. So there's a big gap. The 256 stops a lot of light coming in. That's only going to be really used for doing long exposures in photography. But there we go. I'll drop a link to these below. These are really good. They're not very expensive, and a really good addition to your drone. But hopefully that will help with you working out which ND filter you want. If you remember that one stop is simply halving your shutter speed, and then you can easily work out how many stops you need. And it's the same with working out which ND filter. Like I say, a one stop ND filter would be an ND2, a 2 stop would be ND4, 3 stop would be ND8, 4 stop is ND16, 5 stop is ND32, 6 stop is ND64, and so on. You just keep doubling that number for each stop. So it's really easy to work out which one fits with which. It would be, some of them will actually just say 3 stop on them, but a lot of them use the like ND8 syntax to describe how much light they stop. Hope that was helpful. Speak to you all soon, and hit the subscribe button.